What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about 10 things that Britain stole from other countries. Britain, how could you? I trusted you, and now you're stealing, and stealing is way too dramatic of a word here. This is not in a criminal or burglar kind of way. These are 10 things that everyone completely associates with British culture that in fact originally came from somewhere else in the world. And that sounds absolutely fascinating to me. So let's take a look. Things that Britain stole from other countries that we think are just British culture. So,
Number 10. Baked beans.
no way!
The humble baked bean has made a home in every household cupboard in Britain.
No way! Baked beans! I was wondering how British these were gonna get. Man, I don't know what to believe now. Baked beans. That is like the most British thing I can think of. Besides tea. Don't tell me tea is on this list. Well, actually tea could be on this list. It's like, didn't that start in Asia or something? Anyway, baked beans, I don't think originated in Asia. I thought that was the most British thing you could get. That's the only country I ever hear about that eats baked beans and beans on toast and stuff. So where did baked beans come from then? What?
It's a staple. It's part of the national cuisine.
Yeah.
You can't have a proper full English breakfast without
Yes.
beans on the plate.
Yes.
However, baked beans don't originally come from Britain, and we actually have our American friends to thank for the dish. The Heinz brand of tinned beans were originally sold in the UK in Fortnum.
What? 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 Don't mind if I do. We'll take credit for this one. Baked beans originated in the United States before Britain? Or how does that even make sense at all?
Mason as a fancy and exotic US import. And now America thinks it's weird that we eat them on toast.
Yeah. Yes. Baked beans. Baked beans is not a common food in the United States. That is some Americans like beans, and the rest of us Americans look at them like, "Oh, you're kind of weird." We don't do beans on toast. Baked beans isn't part of like a proper breakfast. It's not part of American culture. Baked beans. But it is so British, and this narrator is telling me it's originally American. It's too much. Like, it's not British, blew my mind. It's American, blows my mind. Man, I don't even know what's going on anymore. Let's continue.
What gives? Number 9. Penny farthing.
Penny farthing. Now, is this a real word? Penny farthing. I don't know what penny farthing actually means. Does it have to do with umbrellas?
Do you remember the penny farthing bicycle from history in school? The contraption, named after 2 British coins because of its ridiculous uneven wheel size, is seen as a symbol of incredible Victorian engineering.
Oh, this thing. This is true. This is true from cartoons like this, Family Guy, and other pictures. This bicycle, I didn't know it was called a penny farthing. This weird bicycle that kind of looks funny. Americans do associate this with British culture, actually, in kind of a funny way. But, man, yeah, I definitely would have told you this is British, if you asked me. I just didn't know what it was called. So where did it come from?
And wealth. The design is credited to inventor James Starley, who created it around 1870.
Okay.
But the bicycle originates with French engineer Eugene Meyer, who patented the wire-spoked wheel and created a similar high wheel design in Paris a year before Starley's.
Okay, so it's technically French design. This doesn't blow my mind quite like baked beans have blown my mind. This like, okay, this thing sort of British. Yeah, I would have thought so, but it's nothing. Is anything gonna top baked beans? Wow.
Meyer is now, rightfully, considered to be the father of the unique contraption.
Okay.
Number 8. Football.
Oh, football. Man, I know football is so freaking popular in British culture. Here we call it soccer, and it's really not all that popular. It's huge in Europe and in the UK, I know. I didn't necessarily think football was invented in Britain, so this doesn't shock me. but it is very British. But I actually think of football as just very a European sport. I'm just like, okay, that's over there in Europe, like doing the whole football thing, yeah.
We may sing that football's coming home, but its original home isn't actually in the UK.
Wow.
True, footy is quintessentially British and the first football association was created in England.
Oh.
But the earliest known form of football was a Chinese sport called Cuju, which was
Oh, this actually originated in China? Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, this is, like, who's the first person to kick a ball around? Like, that could have been a caveman thousands of years ago, who knows where. They're saying that it originated earliest records in China of formally playing a game like football, so it makes sense to me.
was basically an ancient version of Kipi-Upi. Whilst FIFA also recognises the ancient Greek game of Episkairos as being an early version of the game, modern football appears to have come from a similar game played in England in the Middle Ages.
Oh, so it is kind of English. Yeah, again, it's like lots of people around the world, like, for a long time have probably been kicking a ball around or kicking a rock, who knows? And technically, that's the earliest form of football, you could argue. But like they said, it was also Greek, and even more modernly, the more modern version of the sport in England. So it is pretty British still.
Number 7. Freddie Mercury.
What?
The flamboyant, strutting rock and roll star we all know as Freddie Mercury may seem as British as they come.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I don't know about Freddie Mercury's, like, biography or anything. I didn't watch the movie, the biopic. And, is he not originally from Britain? I could believe that. Why not? Maybe him or his parents are from somewhere else and he grew up in Britain?
He was actually born in Zanzibar as Farouk Bulsara.
Wow.
Mercury spent his formative years in what's now Tanzania and then in India, which is where he learned to play piano.
He born in Zanzibar, grew up somewhat in India. I didn't know about all this.
It wasn't until he was 17 that his family moved over to Middlesex in the UK.
Wow.
We should be thankful that he did, or he may never have gone on to front the legendary rock band Queen.
Wow, all the way 17. That is not nearly as young as I thought. You're almost becoming, you're like a young adult at that point when you're 17. So yeah, I would say Freddie Mercury, I 1000% would have assumed he was fully British, born and raised in Britain, because he's a British icon, for crying out loud, but didn't even get there till 17. Wow, I'm really surprised how old he was, actually.
Number 6. Polo.
Polo?
Polo, the sport of kings. Such a noble
Polo?
sport.
Polo? Polo is fancy. I don't know anything about polo. You're on a horse with a stick. You hit a ball. That's what I know. Polo, I mean, Americans just think of polo as fancy. It's really fancy. It's for rich people. And a lot of times us Americans do associate fancy stuff with British stuff. Like, we think the British accent is very fancy and British culture and polo. But that being a given, I still never thought polo was British. I never really thought about polo much or where it came from.
Such a British sport? Actually, no. The famous sport of the English upper classes wasn't actually invented by the Brits.
Huh.
It was originally played thousands of years ago in Central Asia, and most notably, Persia.
This makes sense as well. These sport ones. Like, football could have been invented anywhere at any time. Polo, anytime in the past, they were on horseback hitting balls with sticks. They're saying it probably was in Asia. This makes sense. I did not know polo was even considered like a British upper-class staple sport, so I didn't even know that.
It was also a favourite with the nobility. The game's popularity eventually stretched to China and South Asia.
Okay.
It was then in India in the 19th century that the British picked the sport up, before taking it home and completely making it their own.
Huh.
Number 5, the Queen. You would be for
The Queen? The Queen? Rest in peace, of course, but the Queen... Don't tell me the Queen isn't British. Don't even tell me that. What does this even mean?
Given for assuming that the Queen of the United Kingdom herself might be British, but you guessed it, you'd be wrong again. Her Madge actually comes from a family of German descent. The royal's name was originally Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, but they changed it in 1917 during World War I.
So, all right, is this a bit of a stretch? They're saying that the family has German origins, German descent. Queen Elizabeth herself was she born and raised in Britain, or at least like grew up entirely in Britain? For sure. I think this is a bit of a stretch. Just saying, I mean, it's an interesting fact. But to say that Britain stole the queen from another country just because at some point in her family ancestry it was German, that's a bit of a stretch.
Essentially for PR reasons. If you look back through the monarchy's history, you'll see that most of the bloodlines are actually made up by nobility of many different countries, mostly from across Europe.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's not even weird. That to me, that's just British history, world history. Like, that's just how it kind of worked back then. Lots of countries doing lots of different things with each other. So that doesn't shock me. And it was also a bit of a clickbait, in my opinion. Okay, number 4, pubs.
Number 4, pubs.
Pubs? Now, this is getting to the level of baked beans. Pubs are very, very, very British. All Americans think this. Pubs are synonymous with Britain. But I guess, man, the thing is, this video is just diving into like technicalities, I guess, and I don't know. It's interesting because maybe pubs and baked beans and other stuff originated somewhere else in the world, but in the modern day, for the longest, it essentially is British culture at this point, right now. So that's not really the point they're making. They're saying that pubs are not originally from Britain, which does surprise me.
The local, the boozer, the ale house, whatever you want to call it, the pub is surely something distinctly British.
Yeah.
There's one in every town.
Yeah.
In some towns, there's one on every corner.
Yeah.
The good old public house may now be as British as Churchill, but it was actually brought to these shores by the Romans. When the
Romans. I guess at the end of the day, a pub is just a community drinking place. Or, you know, sometimes you eat or gather or just have fun. A pub is a community gathering place, which is a really loose kind of definition. Certainly that kind of thing has existed throughout history, like outside of Britain. So that, but now pubs are so British, like they just are.
When armies invaded, they brought with them the concept of road networks. Along with that, they then set up pubs as convenient stop-offs along the way. Number 3, St. George.
St. George. Ooh, I don't know St. George. I don't know what this one is, so I can't even say I thought it was British. Don't know what this is.
He's the patron saint of England. You'd think he'd at least be British, right?
Yeah. Oh, patron saint of England is not even British. Not even English? Wait, what?
Nope. The dragon-slaying knight may be a symbol of English bravery and honour, but English he is not.
Wow.
This legendary figure is actually believed to have been born in Syria to a Greek Christian family. He was adopted as the patron saint of England by King George III in the 14th century, but Georgie is also the patron saint of, just to name a few, Georgia, Beirut, Iberia, Brazilian football club Corinthians, and the sexually transmitted disease, syphilis.
What? Wait, what? What are we saying now? Okay. I mean, that's actually kind of cool that the patron saint of England isn't from England. It's kind of like his story and his heroism transcends culture or nationality. And it's more about what he represents for England than the fact that he's English. That's more important. So that's actually kind of cool.
Number 2, fish and chips.
Here we go. There we go. There we are. Another one like baked beans, fish and chips. Fish and chips. That is right there with baked beans as something that all Americans would say, oh, what's one of the most British things you can think of? Fish and chips. That is it. That's not British. That's not British. That's what we're saying.
Ask anyone what the national dish of Great Britain is, and the answer is usually one of two things, a Sunday roast or fish and chips.
Right, literally, it could be the national British dish. Seriously.
Only that second one isn't actually British.
Wow.
The battered beauty is actually believed to have been brought to the UK in the 17th century by Jewish immigrants hailing from either Spain or Portugal.
Spain or Portugal came to Britain like 300 years ago. Wow. Well, it's been British for a very, very, very long time, 300 plus years. But that's interesting. Like, wait a minute, they had chips, they had fries 300 years ago? I just realized that's a thing.
Even the chip is believed to have been invented by a Belgian housewife when she was out of fish and opted to fry potatoes as a substitute.
Ah.
As if that's not bad enough, the classic dishes of cauliflower cheese, beef Wellington, and mince pies aren't actually British either.
What? I mean, it's shocking, but it's also kind of cool how British culture has kind of assimilated all these other parts of other cultures into British culture. So I don't even think this is a bad thing. It's just kind of shocking.
Number 1. Tea.
Tea! Tea! I literally was thinking about tea when they said baked beans and then fish and chips. What's the other most British thing possible? Tea. But this isn't totally shocking to me. Tea, I think it probably came from Asia originally, right? Like way back in the day. But now, man, tea, like the most British thing. Tea, for sure.
Not this. Take anything but this. There's surely nothing more British than a good cup of tea, right?
I know.
Well, actually there is, and the classic brew isn't quite as British as we're usually led to believe.
Wow.
Tea has been drunk in China for thousands of years as a medicinal drink.
Yeah, that's the thing, is tea is thousands and thousands of years old. So what are you gonna do?
It's only been consumed in the UK since the 16th century, when the
Wow.
Portuguese Princess Catherine of Braganza married Charles II.
So tea has been in British culture for 400 plus years, but tea has existed for thousands of years. So this makes sense.
She had a taste for a cuppa, and so it became fashionable amongst the British royalty, and eventually its popularity grew and imports boomed.
Huh. It became popular as like a fad, because someone who knew of tea from somewhere else in the world became part of British royalty, got popular with other British royalty, and then popular with the people, and now it's just the most British thing imaginable.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out.
Yes, oh my, that was fantastic. That was so interesting. And that was by WatchMojo UK, and I gotta give that a like. That was shocking, man. These were excellent. When I first saw this title, like Things Britain Stole from Other Countries, it caught my attention, and then I realized it's things that we think are British, but originally are from other countries, but let's face it, all these things are British. They're part of British culture. Now, the world changes, cultures change. That's how it works. Cultures pick up things from other cultures, and it's perfectly normal. So this was just kind of a cool history lesson in a way, but at the same time, I am genuinely shocked by some of these things, because until I started thinking a little deeper about it, I did just think British things were British. Like they're just, oh, that must just have always been British. Like baked beans and a penny farthing. No, I never actually thought about that. But Freddie Mercury and what else? Fish and chips and tea were excellent. Super interesting stuff, and I just enjoyed this so much and learned quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment on what you think about these things that are now parts of British culture. If there's any other things you know that Britain assimilated from another culture. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to British culture and stuff about Britain that I've never seen or learned about before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.